All right, welcome everyone. My name is Ted Hogan. I'm one of the co-chairs with Sonia Flint, running the Chicago Dynamo Group, or Dynamo. And today we're going to cover the topic of Dynamo to pyRevit with guest speaker and my former colleague, Kyle Faulkner. I think this is going to be a really interesting topic because one of the things that we've just been talking about internally is whether or not Dynamo is kind of starting to reach an end of life. We all love it, but as other programs like Rhino Inside and pyRevit start to fill the same gaps and there's more competition, I think the question has to be asked, is it still competing and developing at the same rates as some of those other software programs? And when I asked Kyle, if he'd like to present, um, he commented that that they don't really use Dynamo as much these days, and they've started to use pyRevit, but that there is still this transition from one to the other. So Kyle is a co-founder of Hastings Technology and Architectural Computation Organization, or TACO. TACO is instrumental in developing workflows and tools and integrating new technologies into Hastings workplace. And during his talk, he's going to share some of his team's journey from utilizing Dynamo to transitioning to pyRevit and discussing the advantages and challenges of each. And knowing Kyle, I'm excited to see everything that he's going to present. He's definitely one of the best computation people I've ever worked with. So Kyle, take it away.
Thank you, Ted. That is very generous. And I will say that Ted was kind of the one that got me into a little shout out to Ted. Ted was the one that got me into Python in the first place way back in our ASGG days. So
I
if
remember
there's
when
anything, yeah, go
I
ahead.
remember when Kyle started sending me Python scripts. He's like, can you look this over? And within like 3 weeks, I was like, you're better at Python than I am.
Well, I was just gonna, yeah, I mentioned that because I just want to say if there's like anything you see in this presentation that isn't good or you don't like, we can blame Ted because he got me started. So let me share my screen here. All right, you see that?
Looking good.
All right, well, let's get started then. Yeah, as Ted said, my name is Kyle Faulkner. I am working here at Hastings. I'll get into a little bit of this in the next couple of slides, but today we're going to talk about kind of our transition from Dynamo to pyRevit. Why we started using Dynamo, why we switched to pyRevit, what do we still use Dynamo for, why do we like pyRevit better? Just kind of all the Dynamo to Revit and everything in between. Uh, there we go. My name is Kyle Faulkner. Like I said, I'm an associate here at Hastings Architecture. Hastings Architecture is in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm one of the co-founders of Hastings Technology and Architectural Computation Organization, or TACO, as we lovingly call it. Um, and this is, just a little aside. We formed this group before the advent of ChatGPT, so we thought of this all on our own. No ChatGPT to help, so we're kind of proud of that. But I've been working 10 years in computational design, starting at ASGG and before I went to SOM, and then here at Hastings for the last 5 years. A little bit about Hastings. We're a Nashville-based architecture, interior design, planning, and sustainability consulting firm of around 80 plus staff. I think we're hovering just under 90 these days. Deeply committed to design and community since our founding in 1985. Really good group of people. So a plug to Hastings Architecture if anybody's looking to move down to Nashville. Great town. So Taco is like Ted said, that our technology and architectural computation organization. It's kind of every group kind of has their little technology team, and this is what we call ours. Taco strives to expand architectural boundaries with tools and technology, and we serve to kind of test tools, test new programs, workflows, build tools, just kind of anything to help advance the technology side of the firm and keep us moving in kind of an innovative direction. We also kind of do the model shop stuff at our office. This is the group of 12 of us. Um, all kind of different backgrounds. Some people are more focused in the model building. We've got some interior designers. Other people are more focused kind of on urban design. We've got architects and designers alike. Just kind of a good group of people. And then of course we have our taco principal, Sarah Atherton, who's kind of backing us up and pushing us forward. Some of the things we do at Taco, um, we do some, in addition to kind of the Revit Dynamo stuff I'll talk about today, we do some tool development in Grasshopper and Rhino, um, do some internal searching for of programs to test out. Uh, we do some model shop CNC work, like I said, and then we kind of help keep our the greater office informed about things that we're working on, things that tools they should be using and things like that. So to get into the meat of the conversation today, we're focusing on our start, kind of in the left here in Dynamo to where we are today in pyRevit. And I use this kind of crude drawing as a little diagram to show that this wasn't like a clean transition and still isn't a clean transition. It's kind of a winding road that you get to from pyRevit or from Dynamo over to pyRevit. Um, so to start off, to ask this question, why are we developing tools? Why are we using Grasshopper or sorry, Dynamo or pyRevit to build tools? Um, and some of these points, the main one being is that we're using Dynamo or pyRevit mainly as a way to increase efficiency. A lot of people, Dynamo is really good at doing a lot of geometry work, and that's kind of what makes it exciting. It's kind of the Revit equivalency of Grasshopper, doing more formal studies and things like that. But at our office, if we're doing things like that, we're generally using Grasshopper and not Dynamo. So Dynamo really became a tool to develop scripts to increase efficiency. And be, being kind of a designer-led technology group, we have a really small script creator group and a much larger script user group. And we're all kind of self-taught scripting amateurs. So a lot of the things we do are maybe crude in the beginning and develop a little bit more throughout time as we use them. There's always lots of bugs. But the main advantage is because we're the ones writing them, we're also the ones using them. We're working in the model, we're doing projects, and realizing there's a need, or there's a need for a tool, or Revit's lacking in some way, and that being able to work on projects directly is kind of informing what scripts we need to write, how the scripts are best going to be utilized by the office. So why Dynamo? Why did we start using Dynamo? Well, the main reason, or one of the big reasons, is accessible to everyone in the office, right? It comes with Revit. It's built in. Everybody has, if they're using Revit, they have Dynamo on their computer. There's no need to install a separate program. There's a central and easily updatable database of tools. The lower the excuse me, the learning curve for visual scripting versus coding in Python that we'll talk about later or other languages is much lower. Um, you don't really have to understand the syntax of coding to just jump into Dynamo and to get plopping components on the graph and building a script. And that's one thing that is really attractive still today compared to like Python and other programming languages, and something that allows other people in the office that maybe don't know scripting even in with all of our pyRevit scripts to get in and start creating scripts. And as you know, there's a large community base with a huge library of custom nodes. There's, you know, um, there's not a lot of reinventing the wheel that you have to do when you're working in Dynamo, and that makes it easy to jump in and attractive for developing scripts. And as we started using it, we can kind of see uh, this path form of how we started using Dynamo and what led us to get into pyRevit. So at the very beginning, like a lot of people, you're building scripts just with out of the box nodes, right? You have the nodes that Revit supplied to you, and you're building scripts with just those nodes. But eventually, you come to a point where you realize, well, something that I'm trying to do, I can't do with just these out of the box nodes. So then, well, now I need to maybe look for some packages. And so you find some packages to kind of supplement the out of the box nodes. I know when I was using Dynamo, I think Spring nodes and like Clockwork, right? The huge ones. I don't know if they're still around, but some of those big packages that are kind of just supplementing the out of the box Revit nodes that maybe they should have had at the beginning, just to kind of facilitate more complex scripts. And then you kind of get a little farther down the road and you start looking at these packages, opening them up, looking in the scripts, seeing what kind of Python code work they're doing, and then starting to implement your own codes. So maybe you're doing some code in node, simple ranges or really short scripts, or maybe simple custom Python nodes to do some list management. Oftentimes, I would just have like a little Python node in my script that would just be for maybe breaking a list into separate lists or combining lists and just some simple list management stuff. And eventually we got to, some of our later Dynamo scripts before we switched over to pyRevit were all single node scripts. So basically looked like this, right? We had a component that kind of talked about the script, and then we had the Python node. And then everything in that script was Python code. And I started doing this because a lot of the times it was just easier to put it all in a script instead of trying to figure out what node I needed or trying to worry about the list management, going from one node to another and worrying about if it's laced correctly and all that kind of stuff. And it was much easier to just kind of confine it all to its own Python script. And by the time we started doing that, obviously the step to pyRevit is right there. You basically have everything you need just to do a pyRevit button. You have the code already confined and already understood, and the translation is really, really easy. So when we're thinking about pyRevit, or when we're thinking about Dynamo and everything that it did offer and all the good things that it had going for it, we have to think about what was lacking. What did we want to get out of Dynamo that didn't exist? And these are kind of a few of the things that I thought of. One of it is plugin dependency, inhibited distribution, and maybe it's better now, but I remember trying to distribute scripts to others in the office and then finding out that they don't have a plugin installed that they needed, and then just kind of it breaks the workflow. Right now they have to install something, and by the time they get all that done, they could have just done what they needed to do much quicker than all of that. And so that was another reason that led to kind of this entire script in one node, is because you're kind of like rewriting the stuff that was existing in those plugins in order to not have to rely on them. Organization, never heard of them. At least when Dynamo, I opened Dynamo here in 2024, and it's gotten a little bit better, but back when I was using it, there wasn't any folder structure, right? You could point to one folder, and that's kind of the one folder that had all the scripts in it. I think it had a search function, but the biggest problem was it wasn't Revit like, right? It was different. The Dynamo player was different than normal Revit tools. It wasn't a button in the ribbon that you click on, or you click on a different button in the ribbon for a different tool, or you couldn't do shortcuts. The the player the player UI was just kind of a little bit foreign to people, and they were much less likely to open player and use a script in there than they were to just try and fumble around it with normal Revit buttons and maybe do what they're trying to do in a slower way, a less efficient way, but not having to deal with player. And finally, we wanted data to analyze tool use, so we could create all these scripts with Dynamo, which we did. We had a huge list of scripts, but we didn't know which ones were getting used, who was using them, which ones weren't getting used, which ones were working and which ones weren't working, and all of that kind of data that you really want to know if you want to create a successful plugin for the rest of your office. So because of most of our most recent scripts were all in Python anyway, we started looking to see if there was a better implementation that fit our needs. And that is when we discovered pyRevit. And we actually used pyRevit, and I'm sure a lot of you still use pyRevit just for the plugin that comes with the download. It has a huge list of built-in tools that are super useful in their own right, even if you don't use pyRevit to develop other tools. It's kind of all there. Has its own plugin with a bunch of super helpful tools. But pyRevit, if you don't know about it, is a let's say it's a rapid application development built in the Revit that allows you to make your own buttons, make your own scripts. You can write scripts directly in pyRevit. You can write them in a script editor and create these buttons that are very Revit-like and feel very native to a Revit user. This is kind of how simple it is to set up a pyRevit toolbar. So you have some folder on your, either if you're just doing it for yourself on your computer, you can have it on a server, anywhere that Revit has access to, you can put this pyRevit extension folder, but you just have your folder, excuse me, with the dot extension at the end. Then under that you have your tab and anything, if it says like or my tools, that's going to be what your tab in Revit shows up as. Then inside that folder you have your panels, and this is kind of how you can organize your scripts, just like Revit organizes its buttons into different panels. And then inside that folder you can just put these pull downs or buttons directly. These are kind of like little drop downs to put your buttons in. And then inside of that you put your push buttons, and inside that you have your scripts. So it's just basically all you have to do to build this. There's no compiling or building if you're using C#, like compiling a script and manifest file and building all these things. All you need is a folder structure with certain key names in there, and then you reload. You put that folder into your pyRevit settings, you reload Revit, and bam, you have your own personal toolbar. Super simple and a lot of fun too. So utilizing pyRevit in 2021, we launched an internal custom ribbon of tools that we call Taco Bar. And this is like a big, I think we have 148 custom buttons so far, and counting. And this may or may not include scripts that run in the background. So not only can you have buttons, physical buttons that you click on, you can also create scripts that just run in the background. You can create scripts that don't have buttons at all. You can create scripts that just open up URLs and don't really do anything in Revit directly. It's kind of a huge kit of toys to play with, essentially. And one thing that we're really proud of is we have an adoption rate of like 86% of our Office Revit users, which we found in kind of this industry of people developing tools for the office is pretty high. And we credit that a lot to, one, having good tools, right? We're architects, designers that are using the program, and we're writing the tools to fix the problems that we're encountering as we're using the program. And we have good feedback from others in the office that are using the tools. And we also do a lot to just encourage people to use them. We make it fun. We don't take ourselves too seriously. We try to have a good time and make tools that people want to use. So what makes pyRevit a better solution for the needs of the users at Hastings? Well, just as Dynamo was lacking in its familiar, its UI as a familiar Revit tool, pyRevit goes the opposite way and makes a very familiar Revit tool. So like I've said many times, it's it feels just like a native Revit toolbar, right? It's organized. You can have your tools organized to certain categories. You can assign shortcuts, which is one of the biggest things. Because if some of our scripts are really simple, like we have one that turns on room reference lines and turns them off. It's like a toggle, right? And if you have to go to your Dynamo player to click this button to turn on your room reference lines, and then go to the Dynamo player again and click the button to turn it off, it kind of interrupts your flow and decreases your efficiency. Whereas you can have a pyRevit button that does the same thing, and you can assign it to like R. I have it assigned to RR, so I can hit RR. It turns on the room references, so I can see my rooms. I can click on them, move them, hit RR again, and it turns them off. And it's really just kind of seamlessly integrated into the workflow. It doesn't take you out of your groove and out of your work in order to click on a button to run the script. And it's easy to implement background scripts. And this is one thing that you couldn't really do with Dynamo. I don't think, maybe there was a way, but certainly not with Dynamo Player. You can have scripts that run in the background. So this little video here is showing a script that we released this year. Every time you unpin an element, uh, there's a script in the startup file that's monitoring anytime the Revit model changes. So when your Revit model changes, it reads what transaction is happening. The script reads what transaction is happening. It says, oh, you ran the unpin transaction or the toggle pin transaction. And if you run one of those transactions, it'll log the elements that were unpinned. And then when you go to sync, it'll read that log back to you and see if those elements are still unpinned, and then ask you if you want to pin them. So this is something that's, you might not be able to do with Dynamo because it's running in the background. But with pyRevit, you can kind of easily set this up to continuously run, and it's checking every single time. Every single time you do something, it's logging this information and then bringing it back to you when you specify it. And wait, I skipped a thing here. This pyRevit system fits our primary use case for better efficiency in document production. Like I said, pyRevit might not be the best tool if you're using Dynamo for a lot of geometry heavy things or placing adaptive components or a lot of form finding. Dynamo is really good at that, but pyRevit's really good at things if you're just building tools to increase efficiency, which is what we're mostly what we're doing. And another aspect of pyRevit is the telemetry server. So pyRevit ships with a telemetry server that you can set up on your computer, or we have it set up on a dedicated computer in the office. And it basically logs every single command that people use. And we love to always share this information with our colleagues that, we see what you're doing, we're taking your data. But really it's showing us a lot of things. It's showing us which tools are well loved, what tools are getting a lot of use, what tools are not getting used very much. If there's a tool that we think is really good or that we spent a very long time making and we want people to use it because otherwise it's a time waste, then we can see, well, people aren't using this. Maybe we should bring it up in a newsletter, or maybe we should kind of promote it in some way to get people to realize that this tool exists and that it should be getting used. We can see who is and who isn't using the taco bar. Craig. And so this is like a great way to kind of encourage people to use it. If we see that somebody's not using it, that's doing a lot of pyRevit, we might be like, or doing a lot of Revit work, like, hey, maybe you should use this. You don't have to, but it'd be cool if you did. And it comes in this kind of seeing who uses it comes with the fun aspect later. I'll share in a second. And then we can estimate. One of the cool things is we can kind of estimate how much time people are saving by using these tools. So we don't have built in to the scripts, how much time each one's getting saved, but we can kind of do an estimate to say like, oh, this toggle room reference script maybe saves like a minute each time you use it, generously. But we have this revision narrative script which is one of our kind of premier scripts that saves maybe 90 minutes every time somebody uses it. So we can maybe we say like 5 minutes. If there's an average of 5 minutes every time somebody uses the button, you know, you're saving 5 minutes. So if we're getting, see, we have like 40,000 clicks. This is since I think 2001, 2000, I mean, sorry, 2021, I think is when we started the pyRevit taco bar. But if you say, for 40,000 clicks, if you're saving an average of 5 minutes, that's, you know, thousands of hours that we're saving people um, in Revit, just helping automate some of the boring tasks, some of the tedious tasks. Hopefully getting people to spend more time on the design, on the fun aspects, rather than kind of fighting Revit to do things that you want it to do. And this is kind of with our telemetry server, we can hook the database up to a visualization and kind of see what tools are getting used. Obviously, you can see here that the offset doors tool is the winner, getting used the most, but there's other ones in here. Duplicate sheet, which we created before Revit had the duplicate sheet, still a heavy user. And all these other scripts you can see, well, these ones are really kind of doing really well, but which ones aren't? All right, so some tools are flashier than others. Some just get the boring bits done a little bit faster. So now the fun part, let's take a look at some of our favorites. This is, of course, we have to show this one because it's the funnest one, and it's the most important one, obviously. But this is our Get Tacos button. And if you click on the Get Tacos button, it opens up a random taco place in Nashville, so you can order tacos. Essential. The taco browser, this is a tool we developed a couple years ago to help facilitate some of the things we felt were missing in the properties panel of the native Revit properties panel. And this was before they introduced like the search bar and in the project browser and some other things. I think I don't want to say that Revit is like spying on us and seeing the tools that we're building and then implementing their versions, but it's happened a few times. So we'll just keep doing what we're doing. But this taco browser is a pretty cool one. It's got a bunch of different kind of aspects to it. We added like a selection filter so that you can select things and then deselect stuff directly from this browser instead of clicking on the filter thing in the ribbon. It's got a place to store your favorite views. So if you're working on a project and you know that you're working on maybe the first floor plan and the second floor plan all the time, you can save these as favorite views, and then that will get saved per the model. So every time you open up this model, you'll have favorite views saved. If you save favorite views in a different model, again, those ones will get opened up when you open that model, and that'll just save, for all eternity as long as you're using that model. It has a little section for recent views, and that was mainly because sometimes you draw a section and it can't see it in there, and rather than going to the project browser and trying to find it, you can find it here in the recently created. It has a restore previous button, which basically restores the previous views you had open the last time you closed the model. So if you have like 10 plans open and you close the model with those 10 plans open, next time you can open up the model and click this button and reopen all those views and kind of take off where you left off last time. And then it has a sheet browser, which has a discipline filter. You can show sheets that are only in the sheet list. You can search the sheet list, things like that. Things that you can kind of do in the regular project browser now, but you couldn't at the time we created that. Still useful though. Dimension stairs. So this was a tool that we actually developed in Dynamo and had it fully working in Dynamo and it was working great, but decided to translate it over to our pyRevit. And basically you just run the script, select the stairs, and it dimensions them with the risers. And this one, along with a lot of the scripts, are all a lot of them were in Dynamo first, and we translated them over to pyRevit. We actually still have some in Dynamo that we haven't translated over that we haven't gotten to yet, but if you're getting far enough along in Dynamo that you're writing a lot of stuff in Python anyway, it's pretty easy hop to just kind of translate it quickly over to pyRevit. Drop floor to topo. This is a cool tool that we built to self-explanatory drop floor to topo, and it kind of has some built-in features that allow you to drop it based on its internal points that it already has, right? Or you can hit yes on this dialog box, and then it'll add points to more closely match the topo. It'll basically add a point anytime the line crosses a mesh edge of the topo. So you can get floors that really closely follow the topo. This is great, obviously, for landscaping and things like that. Um, Restore floor shape. So this is a fun script that tries to solve the problem of editing slabs have um, that have modified points in them. So the way this works is you run the script before editing the slab. You run the script, you pick the slab, it saves the data of the slab, saves the elevation of all the points and lines in the slab. Excuse me. Then you do your edits. In this instance, I'm showing like cutting the corner off, and then saving it. You can see here in a second. Yeah, so it kind of messes up the right. It kind of like ignores all the geometry it had before, like it didn't exist for some reason. So then you can run the script again, pick your slab again, and then it'll kind of try to pull those points back down to where the slab was before. Offset doors. This is, as you saw, this was our number one tool used. And basically just it does just that, offset doors. You run the script, you pick the door, you pick the wall, and it offsets it 4 inches from the wall. And it has a built-in feature here I'll show as well that pyRevit is brilliant for adding, is you can shift click tools to get different um, to like open up configurations or run the tool in a different way. So many of our tools implement this shift click option, but when you shift click this tool, it gives you an option to change what you want the offset to be. So I shift clicked it, change the offset to 12 inches, and then now every time I use the tool, it offsets 12 inches. And we have used the shift click a lot. A lot of times we'll have tools that alter the view in some way. Like we have a offset, or sorry, a highlight. Um, what is it? Highlight misaligned walls tool. And it'll change every wall in your project to pink if it's not lining up with the grid that you specify. And it'll be super tedious to undo all that color changing if you're relying on that to make some changes. But if you just like shift click the tool, it'll turn all that off. So it's a great function of pyRevit that really kind of increases what you can do with the tools. And this is spray instances tool, and this is similar to the one that you saw in Rhino at the beginning of the presentation. But basically it does spray instances. It's kind of like a paintbrush for painting trees or landscape or people or whatever you want onto topo or a floor. And so this has some parameters built in, like the radius of your brush, how close you want the instances to be to each other, how dense you want the placement of the trees or the instances to be, and then it randomizes them. And after you're done placing them, you can say, well, I want to randomize the scale too. And with Enscape assets, it'll create new types of those families to kind of give you the range of scale that you specify, and then you can randomly rotate them as well, all in that tool. So a pretty good way for adding large crowds of people or forests or whatever you want to do. Place core. This script the script was born of the COVID era. So after COVID came, there's a lot of scrambling to do a lot of feasibility studies, and projects were trying to grab just a lot of projects quickly or submitting for a lot of projects, and we needed to kind of develop really simple floor plans quickly, cores. So this is kind of born out of that. Basically, you run the script, you select what kind of core you want to place, You select your, from the what levels you want the core to place on from first floor to roof in this instance. And then you select your floor and it kind of places it in the middle of that floor. And these are just generic these aren't actual walls and elevators and stairs. These are just kind of like generic um, stretchy families that we use a lot for quick early concept design that doesn't rely on all the constraints and stuff that make working with Revit stuff hard. This is a new tool for the interior folks that we just released this year. It's a layout casework tool, and it basically just allows you to select your panel that you have in front. You select your casework, and then you can kind of select how many you want arrayed across that front, and it'll evenly distribute them and stretch them in a way that meets kind of what you specify. And we have a few site tools that we created, and unfortunately, Revit, well, fortunately, unfortunately, they went away from the topo surface to the topo solid now, so these tools haven't been updated for that, but these tools were made for the topo surfaces, and it allows you to create curbs in your model, road markings, curb cuts, um, site symbols, or symbols on road symbols, all kinds of stuff like that. The um the curb is actually a railing that it just placed on the edge of your topo, and then this road marking tool that is being demonstrated now allows you to select lines in your plan, select the topo, and you can select if you want like a double line, crosswalk, a dash line, all these different kind of lines that have predefined parameters, and you can obviously change the parameters as you can see if you want. But in this instance, I'm demoing placing some double yellow lines in a crosswalk, and this creates a topography element that's kind of just slightly off of the surface below. So you can get some nice lines for rendering. The last couple of scripts here, the revision narrative, this was our biggest time saver in the office. This was that 90-minute, time saved script. And this works by before in the before days, before we had pyRevit, we would often submit with our revisions a revision narrative. So the revision narrative says, this is the sheet that changed, this is what changed, blah blah blah. And people were doing that by hand, right? They were going to every single sheet, looking at the bubble, writing down what was changed, and putting that into a document. Well, with the advent of the script, we can directly comment what we want in the bubbles, what changed. We can run the script. It reads all the bubbles in the project for the revision that you need. It saves it to an Excel sheet, a specific Excel sheet that we have templated out. It also tells you if there's revision clauses that aren't on sheets, but that exist in the model. So you can kind of do a little bit of checking there. And then it opens up this Excel file. There's a macro that you can run in here that kind of lays it all out. And then you kind of have your revision narrative ready to go. And this saved a lot of time. Obviously, went from like 90 minutes sometimes if somebody's doing something manually to just a few minutes to run the script. And my favorite is the last one. This is my favorite script, the Stereomatic. So I kind of have a unhealthy obsession with how stairs should be built in Revit, and I like how I build the stairs and not how other people build the stairs. So I built a script to build the stairs the way I like to build stairs and tell everybody to use it. So you run the script, you select the wall, you select which side of the wall you want your stair on, and then you're presented with this dialog box that says, what kind of stair you want, what's the base level, what's the top level, how wide is your stair, how big do you want the center gap, how many runs do you want, how many steps are in each run, what railing do you want on the inside, what railing do you want on the outside, do you want the railings on the outside to only be at the stair runs, and you click yes, and it builds it for you. So it saves a lot of time from fiddling around with stairs and with railings in particular. Those wall-mounted railings all get kind of done for you. So to wrap up here, it's like I'm getting pretty close to the end. Taco Bar's success depends not only on robust, useful tools, but also on user engagement and a healthy helping of fun. Hopefully, I've illustrated that today, but like I said, we have a lot of fun with it. We have a suggestion box as a taco tool built into the taco bar, so people can click the tool while they're in Revit to do a suggestion while they're thinking about it. We send out newsletters and tool updates. We engage the office in polls to see what people are interested in, what kind of tutorials they want, what kind of tools they want. As you may have noticed, we really lean into the theme, the taco theme. Everything is taco themed because it's fun and we like tacos. And of course, the big thing that we do every year is our taco parties, tacos and margaritas and chips and queso, and we do awards for people who are using the taco bar. Awards for most suggestions, best use of taco bar. We hype we hype the new tools and present the new tools. We have swag and just all kinds of fun things to get people excited about you know, get people excited about using Revit tools. The most exciting thing there is. Um, but like I said, we just have a lot of fun with it. We do one thing that's really fun to do with pyRevit is April Fool's jokes. So you can like build them in to turn on to display. This one is a dialog box that displayed anytime somebody opened a model and told them that we we have a new policy that only allows you 3 in-place models, in-place components per model, and it'll randomly delete any other ones other than those 3. Um, and so just kind of we've got we've gotten into the habit of making sure they're noticeably an April Fool's joke because the first time we did it, it had a dialog box that I thought was pretty that I thought I had made it joking enough that said, "Uh-oh, something went wrong. Your model is gonna get deleted." And and got a couple messages like, I just saw this. What do I do?" So we've made a point to make it, it's definitely April Fool's, but it's a lot of fun. And finally, if you're interested in getting started with pyRevit, I highly recommend it. It's just like Dynamo, it has a very robust documentation and user group, a big helpful community. There's a great collection of extensions already. Like, even if you don't create your own extensions, you can use the pyRevit ones directly or download other ones that other people have created. And and even with us and even with all this pyRevit stuff that we've done, we uh we still use Dynamo, right? It doesn't get left behind. We have just last week or 2 weeks ago, we had my coworker that's behind me. I was helping her with some scheduling stuff, and so I helped her make the schedule, and then left to go home, and then she started playing in the schedule, and I think there were 7 different models she was working in, and she accidentally renamed one of the categories in the schedule, which was set to not itemize everything, and ended up renaming every single room and every single project area so that she synced and then synced all the projects, right? So every single room had the wrong room name. Well, my coworker, helpful coworker, quickly was able to get into Dynamo, write a script that would read all the room names and element IDs from a previous model, an archive version of the model, save them to like a CSV, and then use that same Dynamo script to read that back in to rename all the rooms back to the correct names. So so Dynamo, definitely still has its place for those one-off scripts, and of course for like geometry stuff if that's what you're doing. Yeah. So that's us. That's Taco, with our buddies Dynamo and pyRevit. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. That was amazing. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to start asking you for some pyRevit advice soon. So I'm very, very interested in this Stereomatic.
Oh yeah,
Um,
that was the one that took a long time to write. Like
I could
that took
tell
a
from the
long
way
time.
I could tell
Yeah, at the last
you
taco
had
party,
you
I was
had all
like,
the you had all the what looked like multiple different. You had maybe 8 or 10 railings options, which means that you're not just writing those, but you're modeling the families, and then yeah, that was really cool.
yeah, that was one of those ones that wasn't getting used enough, and I was like, at the last taco party, like, guys, I spent a lot of time on, I put a lot of taco hours on this tool. Let's make sure that, it's worth it for the for the firm to be paying me to do that. So that's one of my favorite tools. I like that one a lot.
And I want to open it up in case the anyone in the audience has any questions.
Bring my face up.
I have a question.
Yeah.
First of all, Kyle, that was awesome. Very inspiring, and very good to know that, because I've been down a very similar path. So currently I have a Dynamo player library that's just underutilized, and converting it to pyRevit tools. So it's neat to see this actually being successful. But at the option point, I've had the issue in the past of getting people to even touch a Dynamo script. And how did you get to that utilization rate of, you said 86% or something? How did you grow into that? Or was it the fun aspect of it? Was the extracurricular things that you do? Because that was like my biggest struggle, is like, look at this tool and it will save you minutes or whatever, and just nobody cares.
Yeah. I think the fun aspect has a lot to do with it, right? We threw the very first year, we threw a huge taco party, and we had tacos and margaritas and a margarita machine, and make you gotta, like, throw the bone out there, get people to come in. People are always gonna come for margaritas and tacos and chips and queso. And then, once you trap them in the room, you can have a really cool presentation with and hype it up, right? I think we had t-shirts, and we were like throwing out t-shirts to people if they were answering questions correctly. And we had, like, temporary tattoos and showing off. And then, once you have everybody there and you're showing off tools that people want to use, right? Everybody's frustrated with, simple things in Revit. I forget what some of the big ones were, but at that time, but you show them a tool that solves their problem that they face every single day with these annoying Revit quirks. And it's just really exciting. And then I think, we made sure to, when we had the party and we had the hype, everything was ready to go, right? We were able to introduce the tools right away. We got the taco bar on everybody's computer like the next day, so they could start using them. With telemetry, we found that our greatest, the day that we had the greatest use of tools, we had 196, I think it was 196 clicks on the taco bar. And we found out that day was the day after the taco party, right? So the people are excited, they're using the tools, they want to get in there and kind of see what they're doing. And so you have to be ready for that and make sure that things are working and things are ready to go, and then people will use them, hopefully. And if they don't, that they're not using them, and you can harp on them a little bit.
Nice. Really cool. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks again, Kyle, and thanks everyone for coming.
Yeah.
I think this was really informative. So
Yeah,
is
I think
Taco
so.
Bar, is that trademarked? Is that
It is, yeah. I don't know. Maybe we should. If I'm gonna keep doing presentations like this, we might have to get some trademarks on there.
you pitched the selling of it so hot, so well, and the taco's already there. So
Yeah, it will. And we talked. This is our. Oh, I forgot to mention. This is Chippy. Yeah, this is our mascot, Chippy. He appeared, throughout the. It's kind of a, if some of the older folks in the audience used Word back when they had Clippy. So this is our implementation of that Chippy, our little mascot, and he's cute and everybody loves him. But yeah, we
does he
talked
pop up
about.
and say it looks like you're trying to build a building?
I have considered trying to implement that, so that's still on my list. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, help you out with tools. But
I
yeah, we
think that
talked
should
about.
be. I don't want to cut you off, but since you mentioned April Fool's jokes, I think that should be your next April Fool's joke. Is just a chippy that keeps popping up over and over again.
That would be a good one. I might have to write that down. Yeah, for sure. But no, I was just gonna say that we uh I said it multiple times that we're just kind of amateurs doing it this, and that's one of the reasons that we haven't really, like, made some of these things publicly available, is because they're everything looks good in the presentation, right? Because I curated it that way, but oftentimes people will run a script that hasn't been fully vetted and is not robust and it crashes their Revit, or they run it and it doesn't work and it comes up with like a bunch of red writing that gives an error. And we're we're still we're all self-taught programmers, so we're all kind of walking through this learning as we go, kind of building up on our knowledge slowly. Designers and architects first, and then amateur programmers by night.
Yeah, I always
And
say
That's hard.
I always say I'm a scripter. I'm not a coder.
there you go. That's a good way to put it. Yeah. Yeah, my syntax is probably, I don't comment anything. It's really hard to read. My syntax, yeah. It's something I don't want people in the public knowing that I was built by me. But
Hey Kyle, this is Steve.
hi, Steven.
We're kind of along the same path as you are right now. We got a pyRevit toolbar that we implemented, and we got some straight up Python scripts in there, and then we also ported some of our Dynamo scripts into that, just because we didn't have the manpower to convert them right away.
Mm-hmm.
But I was wondering what you guys were doing about the Revit 2025 and pyRevit stuff. Have you found anything out about that yet, or?
No, in the forums it says, I browsed the forums and I know that they have like a beta release version, but
I've seen that.
Yeah, here at Hastings we kind of work on a 2-year Revit schedule. So we did like Revit 2020 and 2022 and 2024. So I think we're not even using Revit 2025 right now, so we haven't really had to cross that bridge. We have a lot of scripts that deal with like topography and site stuff that don't function very well or at all in Revit 2024 because of the change to topo solids. So there's still a lot of work on our end to kind of update those tools to get them to work. And I don't know if some of them are even going to work just based on how I'm dealing with the elements. But there are definitely some challenges with upgrade. Every time Revit upgrades, it's like it's kind of like Christmas and Halloween in one, right? You get new tools that you get to play with the Revit API, but also, oh crap, now I have to update these tools and things are gonna get broken and things like that. But it's all part of the fun, and luckily, I'm gonna give Hastings props to this. They're really invested and really excited about the stuff that we're doing too, and give us the tools and the time to do it. Obviously projects come first, and that's always a given, but a few of us taco members always have time on our calendars to work implementing, writing scripts and fixing scripts and all that kind of jazz to kind of keep the train rolling and keep things happening, because it really is a big tool that's well utilized in the office and well liked as well.
Well, thank you again, Kyle. It was great to see you.
Yeah.
I hope that you come up sometime for the Chicago Innovate Symposium.
Yeah, for sure.
And we'll have a taco party up here. and thanks everyone for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks all.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.